So we heard today second arrangement by Future Cello. It is also specifically created for this festive event. And originally, it is a Latvian song by music duo Walter and Kassa. And it is titled "The War Is Not Over." It's quite symbolic name of the song. But also another thing is symbolic is when it was played and aired in Eurovision and also ranked number 5. It was also 20 years ago. This powerful song, it does remind us the importance of hope in a very divided world, unity, striving for a better world. And it is only fitting that we start our second panel with continuing what we started in the first one. We spoke of how we have been closing the gaps, even though the challenges were tremendous already then. We have been closing the gaps during past decades, but we still face many new ones. Need for decarbonization further, reshaping global trade and supply chains, geopolitical developments fueled by Russia's aggression in Ukraine. They're not going away. NIB owner countries' response was very clear. While productivity and environment remain at the core of NIB's mission, we as a bank should also focus at cementing regional resilience and security. To answer the call, NIB already last year has revised its policies to permit defense financing that we are already witnessing today. What we will discuss: can we have it all? Is sustainability at risk by geopolitical risks? How do we build resilience? How do we build regional security? And how can we do that together? We'll go from challenges to solutions. And I do encourage for you to stay engaged. We will open up for questions to the audience here at the town hall. My name is Akvilė Skipare, and I will be the moderator of this panel here today. I am very thrilled to be joined by one of the most influential professional board members in Latvia and the Baltic states, currently part of 5 boards, including Supervisory Board member at Citadele Bank, Daiga Auziņa-Melalksne. Chairman of the board of a leading green energy company in the Baltic countries, Ignitis Renewables, Jonas Rimavičius. And finally, engineer turned CEO, chairman of the management board at company that is backbone of Estonian energy sector, Elering, Kalle Kilk. So please. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's begin with a quick fire round to all participants. So we just discussed sustainability and defense, and prioritized together. Can we have it all? Daiga, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would say it's quite binary. Defense and sustainability. Defense first, because if we are not able to defend ourselves, then there is no sustainable future.
Thank you. Kalle?
Well, actually, thinking of energy field perspective, I think they are walking pretty much on the same pace. We can achieve both targets when we think in a right way.
Thank you. And Jonas?
Yeah, so I think there's an argument to be made that in the short term, there should be priority to defense, right? Because it's the more pressing issue. But in the long term, the long-term prosperity without sustainability is not possible. So you need to do both.
And now I turn to audience. By show of hands, who would agree that it is realistic for sustainability and defense to be prioritized together if it is done right? Ooh. So we've got that covered. That is very good. So this is setting the tone for our further discussion, that now we would dive into the challenges that are upon us, as well as very organically, hopefully we'll move to opportunities pretty soon. So how strong is sustainability momentum at the moment? Are we on a solid enough path? Daiga, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say that it's momentum is moderate.
Yes.
I think looking sort of at this is the first reporting year, and sorry to be practical, when sustainability reports come in, and what I have seen in my experience is that those reports are very technical, and the framework is really very heavy, and I'm not sure if those current reports actually reach the target, because it has turned into more of a compliance exercise, and I think looking that now is omnibus proposal, basically to stop the clock and also to reduce the complexity and become more simplified. I think it's very welcome, especially if we look at the SMEs, because, for example, to produce a sustainability report for a bank, it is 2 people, 7 months work. And that is a luxury that probably small and medium-sized enterprise, which is backbones of Baltic economy, simply cannot afford. So I think this pausing currently, which is proposed, is very good because it will allow a sort of for digital solutions to develop. So this reporting is more targeted and also cost efficient. But of course, on the other hand, I think it's very important from like, we have over the years produced a lot of like, how you say, like glamorous booklets about how sustainable we are, how much we love our clients and how great products we produce and so on. So I think now we need to more report really data and really see sort of where we are going and where we are. So let's take a pause, regroup, see what is the target and proceed stronger and more efficient way.
Mm-hmm. Jonas, you're representing large corporates, as Daiga was highlighting, especially SMEs challenges. How would you comment?
Yeah, so I think if to look from, just to illustrate the trend and to look from energy trilemma perspective, where we have, the sustainability, energy security, and affordability. Prior to the war, for the last 10 years, sustainability was, number one, very, very strongly preferred, the key thing. Post-war in Ukraine, we can clearly see that the preference is going more into the energy security perspective and even energy affordability. And I think we are bouncing between some extremes here, because in the over the last few years, a bit 2 or 3 years ago, we had this very big focus on sustainability. Everyone wanted to show how sustainable they are. ESG was the golden letters. So if you show to investors that you are doing that, that was the thing to go after. And then the companies were raising the targets, which let's say, and commitments without having done their homework. So they were committing to something which they don't know what needs to be done actually to achieve those targets. So that was one situation. And now we are moving into a bit another extreme, where we see that renewables shares across the globe are down 60% over the last several years. We see hundreds of companies going back on their commitments to sustainability. So it's the other way, and especially that's relevant for U.S. investors, right? When we, for instance, we had just recently a meeting with one of them, and again we were showing our standard slide deck, presenting our ESG achievements, and the fund manager complimented us on those are nice slides, but maybe exclude them from the slide deck because I can't show it to our investment committee. So it's going way to the other side. And I think what we need that rational way to bring it back to the middle, and having that vision which Europe has of becoming the first climate neutral continent in the world by 2050, having that vision ahead of us, clearly working towards it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned already some new emerging gaps here, and that it is a challenging discussion, especially with the investors. If you would lift up a bit towards the overall Baltic region, what would you say, maybe I'll turn now to Kalle, biggest gaps to fill for competitiveness, environment, and regional security?
Yeah. Actually, Elering is in the role not only as a grid operator, but our role is more general to keep the whole system running. But of course, we understand that in order for the system to be running smoothly, in a world where the energy sources are the cleanest possible, we need huge amount of investments, and we need very good connections between different regions of Europe. So the future power system will not be able to function efficiently if there is not enough possibilities to exchange the cheap energy at the time when at that particular region there is huge amount of excess. So to my understanding, the gap today is pretty much financial, and in some senses also the mindset of people is not 100% towards the common market. At least there tend to be appearing kind of nationalist ideas that if there is a set of things on the table, let's choose the only ones that seem to be beneficial for us. Let's not do the ones that are beneficial for Latvians or Lithuanians. So it's, to my understanding, we need to somehow keep up the regional perspective for all of our activities, and this is one of the gaps.
Thank you. Jonas, how would you respond to this summary?
Yeah, I tend to agree on the need for interconnectivity. I also would like to probably add that in terms of the gaps which we currently see in the region from those areas which you mentioned is I think the security, the defense is the number one gap which we have right now, and we need to focus on it. And I think maybe a bit moving from the gaps to opportunities which we have, and looking at the Baltic region in particular. One resource which we have plenty of is wind. Right? We aren't rich in too many resources, but wind is one of the resources. On top of that, we have a relatively low level of bureaucracy, and on top of that, we have a low population density, which creates an ideal area in the Baltics to develop huge amounts of wind capacity, and that creates an opportunity for us to transform from the energy importing region to energy exporting region. And I think with what Kalle mentioned, with enough cooperation among ourselves, with building the interconnectors with the regions which need that power the most, we can actually, with utilizing this potential wind capacity and becoming energy exporter, we will both increase our competitiveness. We will increase our security because of being connected and creating dependencies for the rest of Europe on our energy, and we will create growth. So, and of course, the environmental part is a given.
A very integral one, of course. And Daiga, from your perspective, now, how do boards respond to these challenges? How do they work with it? And maybe what you see is now very high on boards' agendas looking forward.
Yeah, so I think still it is very good that growth and development of the business is the first item on business agenda, and also, of course, sustainability, artificial intelligence, how to develop use cases and sort of become more productive, which is also very important given that human resources are very scarce, and we need to be very smart about what we have. Also sustainability, and of course, a lot of time is risks and compliance, sort of.
Thank you. And so it's clear that despite, or actually because of the challenges, there lie opportunities. And now to dig deeper a little bit into the regional security and resilience topic, could you expand a bit more on the opportunities that we have? As you mentioned, the energy independence, and why is Baltic countries as a unique region in your view? Kalle?
Well, we seem to have a lot of energy, actually. Not speaking about this old type of energy that we used to harvest in Estonia, oil shale, which is nowadays, let's say, not really kosher anymore. But also we have huge amounts of, like Jonas mentioned, the possibility of becoming abundant region is actually based on huge amounts of wind power, solar power, which is possible to harvest around both inland and also offshore. So it's, and when we look at the map of Europe, it seems to be so that those energy deficit areas are somewhere in the middle, and energy abundant areas are based around the Europe. And there is also another possibility for us as Baltic countries to be somehow a transit corridor for such kind of interactions between abundant areas. I mean, not only Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania have access energy, but also Nordic countries. And the possibilities to not only transport electricity, but also some energy carriers in gaseous forms like hydrogen. I mean, there is a possibility to be working together with the rest of the region in that sense as well, not only being ourselves, the one who is delivering, but helping the rest of the region to deliver to other regions.
And these capacities, we are not starting also from scratch. And maybe Jonas, you could also add regarding the why it is now such a turning point, and why is this confidence level getting to a much higher state regarding the regional potential for net exporter actually status.
Yeah, I think this step is coming in a way naturally, because we are reaching the point of self-sufficiency. So we are approaching to it. I think even quicker than we expected. So within the next several years, we will see quite the majority of our internal consumption covered by local generation, which in Lithuania's case that is in itself an impressive achievement, because just 3 or 4 years back we are importing 75% of our electricity. We were the biggest importer of power in all of Europe. So it's a success in itself, but I think we should not stop there and move that one step forward and utilize this resource by transitioning to the exporter. And of course, there needs to be multiple things need to happen in parallel, right? So we need to have interconnectors, we need to build the generation capacity, we need to strengthen our grids, we need to create that new demand in the form of whether it's industrial decarbonization or data centers or military. So all those sort of things need to happen in parallel, and also not doing it in isolation, but doing it together. And I think this Nordic-Baltic cooperation, which NIB represents, it's the right format to do it in.
You're transitioning very beautifully into our solutions part. So, how? Let's start maybe with Daiga. Regarding the strategic steps to be taken, and what would you say are the key elements, or what would you need most from national policymakers immediately?
I think, of course, there are some targets set, but I think we need to set more specific targets with clearly defined milestones, sort of, and also align different incentives. And that is very important. I think if we speak about business transition to more sustainable business models and so on. And I also think that it is very important to enhance this regional cooperation, and we see that we have some great examples from energy sector where we have very successfully cooperated in Baltics and Nordics. But on the other hand, we also see that there are some sectors where cooperation hasn't been so successful. For example, transportation, and logistics and all this. For example, Rail Baltica. Yeah, and I think here it is very important to set proper governance of the projects and really set targets and follow so that those targets are reached. And adjust if obstacles arise, of course.
Mm-hmm. You were mentioning milestones, and this is quite important thing to agree upon something that is a one item, and there are plenty of national strategies, but also connections. And Kalle, what would you be your take on the milestone setting and how national policy makers could support this better?
I think that I have a very good example of regional cooperation on the energy field. This was called BEMIP. It was a kind of political framework for creating Baltic energy market together. And it was found sometime almost 20 years ago in 2007. And such kind of, I think that the good part for this cooperation was that they set some kind of not quantitative, but the qualitative targets that we have a dream to achieve together, a common market and so on. Such kind of visions should be somehow agreed on. I think that lately, at least in Estonia, we feel that there is no clarity about the direction. We don't even need those concrete milestones. We need at least something which is somehow, let's say, as a long-term target, something that we can rely on, that each of the small steps that will be taken, each decision should be somehow based on that ultimate target. And this is, at least in energy sector, to me, it seems that there is little of such strength of the plan or the vision.
Mm. Yes.
And
Jonas,
this BEMIP, by the way, this BEMIP was something which also founded this synchronization project as well. So it was already, by that time, it was decided that we need more interconnections toward Nordic countries, toward Central European countries, and we need to not only the market mechanism, but the physical interdependency needs to be only between those parties that are sharing the similar values, not the eastern neighbors. So it has been a very long-term project, and it resulted in very concrete outcomes.
Yeah, we have plenty of cables now.
Yes.
That's very good. And Jonas, what would you highlight as now the most immediate solutions that are needed for national policymakers and but also maybe Nordic-Baltic region now expanding the geography as well a bit? What would you say?
Yeah, well, I think from those examples which were mentioned, clearly we had cooperations which didn't work as planned, right? So LNG terminal didn't happen as planned, like regionally. We had nuclear power plant, again, didn't happen. And then we have the successful ones like synchronization, right? Which was on time, went quite smoothly, everyone is aligned and delivered. So well done to Elering and our colleagues. But I think we should focus on those good examples to see what worked in them and try to replicate it as much as possible. I think that's...
Yeah. And how Johnny Ackerholm also raised in the first panel that really hoping for more joint ventures. So Daiga, maybe I'll start with you. How can we improve the cooperation in the Nordic-Baltic region? What would facilitate that?
Well, I think we mentioned sort of that there are quite good examples in the energy sector, and given my background and many years working for a stock exchange, I must say that also if we see in capital markets, we have seen also quite good cooperation. And even if Minister criticized that our capital markets are not developed enough, I think we have a joint capital market and have had it for quite a few years. And Baltic companies have experienced the benefit of that capital market by being able to attract financing from all Baltic states. And that is something that is very important that we have this Baltic capital market, because we see that currently foreign financial investors are looking very cautiously at the region, and that just indicates how important it is to develop domestic investors base. So basically learning from good examples, and and I think also partially sort of if we spoke about those successful projects, I think it's because there is a sort of business mindset involved, that we set business targets and then develop whatever project might be. I think the problem arises when there is too much political interference, like for example with Rail Baltica, and then sort of it somehow goes off the rail, even if the rail is not built yet. Sort of, I say that there's less political influence, and proper governance, and then we have a much better chance of succeeding. And really, if we speak about those energy projects, we just read someplace in newspaper a heading that that's something where our energy operators are working on, and then perhaps years later it was a reality, and then we cut the red tape, and in this instance not the one that sort of is a bad one, but the good one sort of, and we can celebrate a great achievement. So I think less political interference is actually the recipe for success.
Jonas, your reflections.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on what has been said on the capital markets, and I like the minister's idea very much on this Baltic Nordic capital markets, and I think it is something where we, I mean, as the Baltic countries, could benefit a lot. I think there's maybe less benefit on the Nordic side, but on the Baltic we would benefit a lot. And I mean, just to all this transition, all the sustainability defense will require, large amounts of capital. And I think if we are relatively well positioned on the debt side, right, the equity side is really a struggle. And I'm saying that, with an experience of a number of debt and equity raising projects. And the equity part is crucial. It's super difficult to attract equity in the Baltic markets as they stand right now. So if we are able to somehow benefit from this attachment to the Nordics, that would be a great benefit for both our economies and for multiple projects which we are planning to do.
I must interfere because we already have joint Baltic Nordic capital market, and Nordic investors can easily access Baltic companies. It is a question about how quality products we offer, how broad is the product range, and that is a question about ambition. For Baltic companies, private-owned and most importantly for state-owned.
Yeah. My point is more on the how do we transition from the frontier market to the developed market, and that is currently.
Yeah, but that is a question of market depth, and that is more companies on the market.
So how do we boost up the performance? And we discussed that especially cross-border collaborations, well, now it could be public and private sector examples, but what would boost up this growth that would either attract the investments in the region or boost up the confidence because it is such an important item? What would you see would be kind of, if we could dream a little bit, good cooperation examples between now in the region, between the countries? It could be public, private, and what would facilitate this? Shall we start with Jonas?
Yeah, sure. I think a good project, which is actually currently in progress, is the electricity interconnector between Germany and the Baltic countries, and that the LOI has been recently signed, and it's due for 2035, 2037. So there's a long way to go, but I think that's one project which is crucial right now in order to utilize this opportunity of becoming energy exporter. And how we do that, I think we learn from the best examples such as synchronization, and we deliver that.
Kalle, maybe you could reflect also on the maybe this particular project as well. Is it an opportunity or a threat? I've heard many insights.
Yes, I think that this is one very good example of a project where, in general, many people see the benefits, but the shared size of the project is scaring, and the current understanding how to complete such kind of multi-billion projects when the parties are very unequal in their, how to say, financial strength. This is an issue. And also, like I mentioned before, we need to somehow understand those projects as something which is giving win-win to all of the participants. In some cases, such projects are purely perceived by something which is taking something away from us, like cheap energy. And so on. So this is something that needs to be worked on a general mindset level, that we cannot win 100% in all of the projects. Maybe in some projects we win a bit less, somebody else wins a bit more, but all in all, together, all the projects give us mutual benefits to all. So this is, again, I'm an engineer. I cannot affect the people's minds, but this is something that we can pretty much work on.
So from engineering perspective, it is of course an excellent strategy, as I understand and hear and also believe. But the more tricky part is the actual how in deliveries and how we will do that and how do we communicate with the public.
Another such kind of example is, to my understanding, this transit corridor of hydrogen that we are planning together with Finnish, Baltic, Polish, German colleagues. Again, involves huge amount of investment, but there is at least some light in the end of the tunnel to all of the participants to see the benefits. So such kind of things that we can bring out, that okay, even at the moment Estonia is not using hydrogen, we don't have any producers, we don't have any consumers, but this transit corridor would bring some kind of opportunities, business opportunities. And this has always been a case for infrastructure, that until it's there, nobody misses it. When it's there, finally you find that, okay, this is a very good thing. And to our understanding as well, we may have a difficult time to convince Estonian publicity that it's a good thing now. But in 10 or 15 years, everybody will be asking, come on, guys, why didn't you build it earlier?
Like LNG or Baltic Connector, gas pipe with Finland and Estonia. Well, now I would like to use an opportunity to turn to the audience, and I invite your questions, should you have any. I can see a lot of interested faces with not many hands up. But anyways, I have a question already in my back pocket. We are closing into the wrap-up part of our panel. And thinking of the course on sustainable future, what we are discussing now, if you could choose just one thing immediately, what we should do now, what would it be, in your opinion? Jonas, maybe we could start with you.
I'm conscious that I mentioned it already multiple times, but I would still do the cable to Germany for power exports.
Repetition is alma mater's, credo. Daiga, would you like to?
Hard question.
Yeah, the easiest question of the panel.
I think obviously sort of this sustainability part is very important, and I think I think we need to really regroup and change this how we approach sustainability from regulatory perspective, really, and follow through with those omnibus proposed changes and sort of set a new pace with clear achievable targets and change that part.
Yeah, thank you. And Kalle?
At least to my perspective, it seems that I agree with Jonas. Future connections are necessary as well, but still Estonians are a bit slower than Lithuanians, and we are not that far away yet with guaranteeing the sufficient amount of energy in our own region, so particularly in Estonia. So to my understanding, the resilience and energy security has to involve sufficient local generation in any form, and also backup generation for those, let's say, cloudy and windless days. So this is something that we can work on a very short term in energy understanding, 3 to 5 years. And of course, longer term are like 10 and 15 years ahead.
So, but you have touched the 20 years subject. So now already as a tradition also from the first panel, looking 20 years ahead. Let's have a time machine a little bit and look into the future. Where do you see the Nordic-Baltic region? What have we achieved? Jonas, would you say the same item, or would you even add something?
I will try to expand. So, hopefully we are, at that point, we are fully decarbonized, focused on energy exports, and, have a track record of good cooperation among ourselves with multiple infrastructure projects delivered on time and on budget.
Sounds fantastic.
Yes, it does.
So I say resilient, green, digitalized, and economically developed region.
Big words in one snappy sentence, which is would be. It sounds like a headline that we could have. And Kalle?
Yeah, I was also thinking what kind of headline I would like to see. That actually, I would like to see that there is no headline concerning energy in 20 years, because to my understanding, the current situation is somehow reflecting the insecurity of the society, because they feel that energy is a pretty important part of the overall security, and there is not a lot of clarity whether our energy mix and the perspective is good or bad. And this anxiety is leading to many headlines, and I would like to see this anxiety be gone in 20 years.
Excellent. That's how we start. We dream bigger, and then we achieve. And you see, and also from the discussions that we had throughout the day, and also audience show of hands, that the topics are very much intertwined. There are some immediate actions that we need to take in defense, whilst we keep our long-term targets at our focal point as well. And the energy security is absolutely a trending topic, supporting the net exporter route fueled by actually renewable energy. And the capacity built up in the infrastructures, as I believe you, Kalle, said before, keeping those lights on.
That's what we do.
Yes, and maybe to finish off with the Grybauskaitė also words that, well, do what you need to do and have courage. So with these words, I thank you, my dear panel participants today. It was an honor to have this discussion with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. And now, to conclude our event, I am delighted to invite André Küüsvek, President and CEO of Nordic Investment Bank, to deliver closing remarks. So the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Aquila. I was thinking there are two ways to do it. The first would be what Jukka referred to earlier, that I took a lot of remarks and notes. A lot of clever things have been said from the stage. For me, it's been a very inspiring morning and inspiring day. Many brain cells, I think, have been taken to the next level. And I think it's not a coincidence that next is the first word on the screen. We heard President Grybauskaitė starting by stating that when the Baltics regained its independence, then the first thing to think about was political and economic independence. And it was also not only to prosper, but it was also the desire to, and almost universal agreement that we need to join the European Union and NATO, but we also need to join the other international organizations, and that is the multinational development banks and the regional Nordic Investment Bank. I think that desire didn't just come out of, we want to be members of a club. I think that desire also came out from the need for resilience, to preserve what we have, to achieve more, and then preserve and defend that point. I found myself thinking, sitting here today, that the Baltics joined NIB in 2005. And referring to what Kalle said from the stage just in this panel is that, why didn't we build it earlier? The independence was regained in 91. And I found myself thinking here that there is a reason why it took so long. And it has to do with people, it has to do with values, and it has to do with that Nordic mentality that we want to preserve. I think the Baltics had to prove themselves, and they did, to the European Union, to NATO, and finally to NIB. We were not the fastest as a bank at that point, right? But I think it was this Nordic consideration and carefulness of who do we want to be members of the club. And I'm glad that now 20 years later, I think we can say that it's no longer 5 countries, but it's 8 countries that are in that club that shares all the same values and very much the same mentality. So it wasn't that NIB was waiting for the NIB's own creation in 1975 to then coincide with Baltics joining so that we can celebrate the jubilees together. 50 years of NIB versus 20 years of Baltic membership. That's a coincidence, and we do have these parties separately. We're not saving money on it. But it did take a while. Now, the Nordic Investment Bank, with its 2 core mandates, productivity and environment, they're very much illustrating these values that I'm talking about. If you're small, you need to be productive, you need to be efficient, you need to be clever, you need to be faster than the big boys. You can never compete with the big boys on the volume or pure muscle, but you can work your way through, and you can build based on people being clever, smart, thinking of what works, what doesn't. So I think the Nordic values partially come out of that maybe somewhat tougher climate that we have, maybe the fact that we now jointly, we have a bit of a dangerous big neighbor in the east. We have seen also the past 100 days and the new administration in the US brings us surprises from the other side of the Atlantic. So I think in some ways we are a little bit back to the creation of NIB, that why did we need a bank? Because we needed something that has the power to select what works and what doesn't project-wise, that has the financial muscle to finance projects, but also has the ability to attract money from other parts of the world, much bigger parts of the world. So NIB alone issues bonds annually somewhere to the tune of 8 to 10 billion euros. 80% of that money comes from outside the region. We finance companies here that build their growth and future not only to the domestic markets, but they also build it to export out, which again brings in that money, revenues, and eventually prosperity to the people. I was very much touched upon by the music today. The future cello, great job. I think the future in the word is, it's not the past cello, it's the future cello, right? Has again a lot to do the way we try to live our lives, looking into the future. And we build our lives and business a little bit like we build music, that it needs to be a bit of an orchestra. You need to enjoy the other players, the other instruments that maybe are different to yours, but you tune yourself and you create something fantastic. So I would like to therefore thank all these, and quoting the ABBA song, thank you for the music. Thank all these different stakeholders, the member countries as shareholders that have provided the original capital, to thank the investors that have been funding the bank over time, to thank all the clients, first and foremost, that have been implementing these great ideas and coming up with those and implementing that we have been able to support over the years. Would like to thank the staff. It wouldn't have been possible again without people subscribing to that mandate of productivity and environment, the long-term vision, now also the resilience that we need to preserve. And then finally, the partners that have been co-financing with us, all the commercial banks, some of which are represented here, the other IFIs represented here. And I think whilst the countries are small and sometimes the institutions are smaller than they would be in other parts of the world, I think we, acting together, we can create value that lasts. So maybe to conclude, I would like to say it's a great journey. And every institution is only as strong as its next act, as its next year, as its next 20 years. So I very much hope that there will be many decades of Nordic investment banks supporting the countries, supporting the joint energy market, supporting the joint capital market that Minister Šadžius referred to, and building connectivity, enabling us to move around and then send our goods that we create and great ideas, digital connectivity as well, and be successful whatever happens in the rest of the world. You know, we've been around here for a while, and we will stay around for a bit longer than that. I think hopefully the future is longer than the past. So I think I would like to thank you all. I would like to remind you again that whilst some of these discussions have been here in a typical Nordic-Baltic fashion, very pragmatic, and you know, a smile only comes out when one wins an Olympic gold or becomes in Finland, you know, the ice hockey world champion, and suddenly every Finn is different than one was yesterday. But we are celebrating the 20 years. Very much enjoy all of you here, and very dedicated audience. I hope you are as dedicated when we move on to the reception which follows. But now that we have heard two performances by Future Cello, first the Estonian song, which was both personal, on the different sides of the water is maybe even the better translation. And we are no longer on the different sides of the water. Now we're in the same waters. Then hearing the Latvian song, and now we hear the Lithuanian song finally, which is Vilnius Stogai, or the rooftops of Lithuania. So please enjoy this one last performance, and then we'll see you all out there at the reception, and then we'll see you in the coming years doing great business together. Thank you.